So we all know how much we don't like Prince Blueblood. But what if he was our main character for the show? Hey everyone, this is your Mini of the East and welcome to part 2 of this month's What If videos. Last week we took a look at what if Princess Rarity was a thing after the events of Magical Mystery Cure. So this week though, we're going to do something on Prince Blueblood. Now, for many of the bronies out there, we all know him as that one jerk from the season 1 finale of The Best Night Ever, where he pretty much snubbed Rarity at everything, was full of himself, and pretty much treated her like crap almost. And didn't even pay attention to her, was just there to be a flirt. But anyways, I wanted to think of an idea of what to do with him, because this all comes from one comic called My Little Pony Deviations. Deviations is a special event that IDW has been doing for the last couple of years, where they take events from their published comic book lines and mix it around a bit. Basically do what if scenarios or alternate timelines, like where you switch around elements to make it a completely different story, whether it be for fun, for comedy, or whatever. For the My Little Pony, which was chosen this year, we had an idea of what if Prince Blueblood was the one that got sent to Ponyville instead of Twilight. But the story went a little further, describing that Celestia chose Prince Blueblood as her protege instead of Twilight for the reason that she thought Twilight would be handling the situation all on her own, and she thinks she could turn Prince Blueblood around. But she soon realizes she made that huge mistake and decides to send him to Ponyville just to, well, get him out of the castle. The end of the comic I will not give away because it's actually a pretty funny conclusion. And in all honesty, the comic itself is almost pretty self-aware about the fans not liking the character at all. So it's pretty cathartic just to see him get his comeuppance at the end. But for those of you who want to read it, I highly suggest you read the comic first, because it's really entertaining. And as a bonus, there's so much I wanted to talk about the comic, but honestly, there's one other brony I know of who's talked about this comic in great detail, and that is Sketchy the Changeling, and I'll leave a description to his video in the description box down below. But yeah, I'm going to slightly retcon the ending, basically, and slightly spoilers, since I'll be going into some elements that I'll be taking from the comic that will be going straight into the season further on. Much like last week, I'm only going to be focusing on season 1, but unlike last time, I'm going to be going through almost every single episode in some detail. For the reason because during season 1, Twilight was mostly shoehorned in a bunch of episodes that she didn't need to be in when it was focused like on other characters, because she was the main character. But we'll see if those events where Prince Blue is pretty much forced into those same scenarios changes at all. So the comic itself pretty much goes all over the first 2 episodes. So I'll say this. Prince Blueblood pretty much is chewed out for how he acted, and the rest of the main 5 successfully defeat Nightmare Moon, but without the elements of harmony. And that's going to be a huge key factor later on if I decide to go beyond season 1. Because without the elements, that means Nightmare Moon did not get reformed, and she was pretty much, well, sympathetic of like feeling, well, I'm not that terrible. Trust me, read the comic to find out what I'm talking about, because honestly, it's again, goes into much better detail than I could ever describe it. But yeah, Nightmare Moon does not get reformed, but she's pretty much captured afterwards. And Prince Blueblood pretty much learns nothing, and he's stuck in Ponyville, I assume. So with that said, we're going to go forward into the next episode, Ticketmaster. So next episode, we go to Ticketmaster. Most of us already know what happens in Ticketmaster. Twilight gets 2 tickets to the Grand Galloping Gala, and her friends try to argue who gets the second ticket. Even though, quite honestly, the ticket was supposed to be for Spike, even though he rejected it in the first place. But anyway, the episode ended with them getting all tickets to the gala. But this is the opposite. I'm going to think that since the rest of the main 5 were successful in apprehending Nightmare Moon, like either they hand her over to Celestia, or Nightmare Moon is going to try to reform herself with Celestia's help, they get their tickets instead of Prince Blueblood, because, well, honestly, I don't think Celestia even thinks that Blueblood deserves the tickets. At least at first, because either way, he showed up at the Gala in the original canon anyways. But I think it's going to be a switch around this time. Instead of the main six going to fight for one ticket, is Blueblood trying to take the other tickets by force, because he feels like, how come I didn't get a ticket? I'm royalty. I'm supposed to be going to the Gala. I'm an important figure. So I figured the episode will be mostly him just antics trying to take the rest of the main six's tickets by force, and by the end he just gives up. But in the end he still gets a ticket regardless. And in a letter by Celestia, she's just chews him out for, well, doing all that. Because honestly, it's going to be a bit of a tough change for Blueblood living in Ponyville, because he's usually used to getting whatever he wants. So before I go a little further, I want to just get one element here. Since Blueblood still has to pretty much learn about friendship, even though Celestia didn't intend that in the first place, he's going to try to at least try to learn about friendship, and I mean learn, so we can use that as an excuse to go back to Canterlot. Because honestly, I'm seeing this scenario, if Blueblood was a main character for the show, I could see this more like in an Emperor's New Groove, or by the TV show, the Emperor's New School standard. Because honestly, Blueblood being snobbish know-it-all, not know-it-all, just pretty much a snob and is used to getting everything he wants. To him, trying to learn some humility and actually learn some stuff about friendship could be a change of pace and a huge character growth for him throughout the season. So we'll see how that goes. So yeah, he gets his ticket next episode. There's really not much I could say about Applebuck season, since mostly Twilight was the one who was trying to convince AJ to help, yet she was stubborn, and all those mayhem situations that AJ causes still happens regardless of Twilight going back and forth to try and convince AJ to give up. Either way, she eventually gives up and asks the rest of her friends, minus Prince Blueblood, because again, he doesn't want to do all the work. So yeah, in the end, AJ still asks for help from her friends, and it ends from there. So, next episode. Griffin the Brush Off mostly plays the same, since this is mostly a Pinkie Pie and a Rainbow Dash episode interacting with Gilda. And Gilda leaves, regardless, with Rainbow Dash standing up for her friends. Again, episode plays per normal, without Pinkie talking to Twilight, and that's it. So, next episode. So, Ghostbusters will mostly play a little different than what we got in the canon, and honestly, it's a little bit of a safer scenario than what happened with the Ursa Minor. So, Trixie's show still comes to Ponyville, humiliates AJ, Rainbow Dash, and Rarity at the show, but without like Spike there to goad Snips and Snails and trying to prove them wrong that what Trixie said was all a lie, and Twilight not being there for trying Spike to convince to one-up on her show, it mostly just plays safely through the most part. And Prince Blueblood just sees it as just this is just all parlor tricks and nonsense. That's not real magic. And in the end, Rarity just does something like, well, humiliates him right there in front of the crowd, or most of Ponyville, how many ponies there were there. They all laugh at him, and he just leaves upset. And I would assume that Trixie leaves town afterwards. So yeah, the town is spared of being destroyed afterwards. So, and then all that happens is that Prince Blueblood just gets humiliated, and that's it. So, on to the next episode. So, Dragonshy will also mostly play the same, but Blueblood is ordered to help out the main six by Celestia this time, since, well, without Twilight there's got to be like another pony to lead the group. And since Celestia knows that, well, she's got a prince down there to help out, she's pretty much saying, well, if he doesn't help out, I'll just send someone else or other ponies to take care of the dragon or get him away. So it mostly plays the same with Prince Blueblood not really contributing much and trying to, well, move along, but he begrudgingly helps out because the main six need him to help, and they chew him out for saying, you gotta pull your own weight around this, and you need to contribute and help save the town that you're living in. He will just mostly roll his eyes. But it mostly helps out, and the leadership role is mostly geared towards AJ in the long run. The episode then plays out for normal, with Fluttershy standing up to the dragon, staring him down, and he goes away afterwards. So yeah, there's only a minor change like when it comes to the beginning towards the middle. But other than that, with leadership roles being changed and Prince Blueblood not contributing much, he still learns a little bit of, well, compromise of helping, and that's it. So, next episode. So, Blueblood, since he lives in the library, that pretty much leaves AJ and Rarity in a situation where they have to be with him in the middle of the night during the events of Look Before You Sleep, and have to stay overnight during the storm. And it's kind of funny, like, they pretty much stay, even though at this point Rarity and AJ aren't really that the best of friends, and they're at each other's throats with their differences. Blueblood tries to flirt with Rarity again, I think, but Rarity's not having after what happened in the comic. And AJ just does not want to be there, but they have no choice. They try to put up with his antics of being posh and proper, which Rarity is up for at first, until his upstart attitude gets them annoyed, and they try to find a way to sneak out in the middle of the night. But they cannot go far with the storm ahead, so they are pretty much forced to stay in the middle of the night at the hands of well, a dick of a prince. The episode ends with them just, well, leaving. No slumber party whatsoever. They leave not feeling satisfied and, well, being terrible, staying in the place like that. That's it. Next episode. Bridal Gossip has a major change here since Twilight is not here. With Twilight trying to goad the group into trying to talk to Zecora for once, they would have had a chain reaction to where they get the poison joke, and then Zecora's the one that cures them, and she's then accepted by the town. But without her, they're still scared by her, and plus, Apple was the one that was take into consideration of actually helping out and reaching out to Zecora for once. Blueblood just is with everyone else, just like, ugh, what is wrong with her? She doesn't look right. And of course, all that judges the book by its cover moral. So he does not want to get involved in this, just as fearful and judgmental as the rest of the ponies in Ponyville. And no, Zecora comes and leaves, and that's it. So that is a major change, since Zecora usually helps out in a lot of episodes down the line. But we'll see what happens if I decide to go past season 1. But other than that, she comes and goes, and the ponies just go on their merry way afterwards. No poison joke, no cure. Zecora doesn't get accepted. Next episode. Swarm of the Century will also change very slightly, since while Prince Blueblood does not contribute much, and since Twilight's the one who tried to organize and get rid of all the parasprites, Pinkie Pie still gets them away out of town just in time. But without Twilight's the spell to try to reverse and destroy all the buildings and everything, all the parasprites mostly do is consume most or all of the food in Ponyville. But I'd say that's tame as compared to the buildings being destroyed, like for the 3rd time within whatever time frame this is. So I'd say again it's a better scenario than when Twilight tries to fix the problem when she made it worse. Not much there. Next episode. Winter Wrap Up and Call of the Cutie don't change that much, other than with Winter Wrap Up, while it is a major change, it doesn't really have that big of an effect overall in the grand scheme of things, since Twilight was the one who was organizing Winter Wrap Up after they were messing up. So in the end, Winter is just late again, and they go on their merry way. Call it a cutie. Twilight barely has any involvement in that episode, and the CMC are still formed afterwards. So these two episodes have little to no changes, so moving on to the next one. For Fall with Her Friends, this also has a bit of a small change since Prince Blueblood does not do much in this episode, and does not compete, and is just there to observe. Because without Twilight to be there to encourage Rainbow Dash and Applejack during the running of the leaves, they also don't have their Iron Hoof competition beforehand, since they needed a judge. So they don't find a judge. They just they get their competitive nature going. So they just go on, and the ponies just watch the fall of the leaves on the trees. God, why am I blinking at it? Why am I blanking on that event, anyways? Prince Blueblood sees the leaves fall afterwards, the running of the leaves, and the episode will just end after that. So not much would change after this. So moving on. Now this one will also have a bit of a major change to go with it, with Rarity being pressured into making the dresses. It was mostly Twilight who was the first one to start up, like, fixing up a small dress, and Rarity's thinking, well, I'll fix up a dress for you. But I think with Rainbow Dash and Applejack being the first to arrive, they'll be like, you know what, why don't I make dresses for you since we're all going to the gala? I'll fix all your dresses. Then eventually Prince Blueblood would catch wind about this, and he'd be like, oh, could you do a dress for me? Rarity would be hesitant at first, but I think at this point of the series, he's starting to show some development, and I say in then quotes, because I think he's trying a little too hard, but he's also, I think, not caring as much. He's learning his friendship lessons, but Rarity's like, okay, if you're going to the gala as well, might as well. And I think she holds out on doing the fashion show, which also has a bit of major change down the line without hoity-toities involved. A word about her business, and now it's going to be another major change down the line. So Rarity is more pressured into making the dresses, mostly from Prince Blueblood saying, nah, I don't like this. Change the cuffs. Nah, that doesn't look good. Clean the buttons. Nah, that doesn't do right. Give me a different collar. Give me a different tie. And yada yada, etc., etc. He keeps making changes over and over to the point that Rarity just can't take it anymore and just gives up with him since he's too specific. At least when it came to her other friends, they were willing to recognize their mistake when of course the whole moral, like, the artist knows what's right, but they should at least take into consideration what they think. Prince Blueblood takes much longer to realize that, and apologizes somewhat after that, but it just pushed Rarity too far to the point that she couldn't make her dress, and her dress is made much later than normal, as it was in the show. So afterwards, everyone gets their dresses for the gala eventually, although much later. No fashion show, no hoity-toity, so Rarity does not get any recognition after that. And plus, hoity-toity was mostly known about this because of Spike getting word to him. So the episode ends there. Next one. With Pinkie Key, this also gets a small change because of Twilight's interaction with the episode. Twilight was more reluctant to believe about the Pinkie sense and is more trying to prove how it was false on trying to sense everything, and she gets harmed in the process. Prince Blueblood is like the same, but he's not as adamant to try and pursue the explanations for all this as Twilight was, and he gets harmed in the process, which the ponies see as cathartic, but Pinkie is like, oh, I'm so sorry that this is happening to you, and Prince Blueblood is like, no, get away from me, and he tries his best to stay away from Pinkie, and I think the rest of the episode would just happen with him just getting harmed like a Wile E. Coyote cartoon, and he just learns to accept the Pinkie sense because, I just can't escape this no matter how much I try to get away from you. With Fluttershy, she'll manage to get away from the Hydra regardless, and she'll either stare down the Hydra to get away, or her friends will help her get away. Either way, the episode is mostly unchanged, minus like the interactions and the thing. It'll have more comedic bits with Prince Blueblood's trying to get away from the Pinkie Sense mayhem that's happening to him. So, next episode. Sonic Rainboom, sadly, is going to be a bit of a downer when it comes to how much was changed in this episode. So, without Twilight, they don't find the spells to go up to the clouds and walk on the clouds, and without Rarity to pressure Rainbow Dash which also puts Rarity into safety, Rainbow Dash successfully manages to pull off the Sonic Rainboom. But this time without any encouragement from her friends except for Fluttershy, I feel Rainbow Dash would still have the nerves get onto her, and she wouldn't have enough practice to successfully perform the Sonic Rainboom, which I think in the end will cause Rainbow Dash to fail and not win the Young Flyers competition. It's a sadder scenario this time, but that's what happens when some of these events switch around a bit. So yeah, it ends there. Rainbow Dash feels bummed out at the end of this, and well, that's what happens. So next episode. Airmaster and Showstoppers are going back to back as well, because they're kind of connected in how I think they would turn out at this point. Stairmaster, of course, will mostly play as per normal, but they, instead of like trying to mess with the singing or finding the chickens, they instead, since they never did the Apple Bloom's curiosity is like, well, why don't we go into the Everfree Forest and find this Zecora person, because we never got to properly see her before. They get curious and they actually meet with her and they interact with her, and in the end they become friends with the zebra. So the CMC are trying to figure out, well, why don't we introduce Ponyville to her? So afterwards they just go back to Fluttershy's without being caught, or they find, or Fluttershy finds them while they're wandering in the Everfree Forest trying to get back. By Showstoppers, they decide to still do their show, but instead of trying to sing about trying to get their cutie marks, they sing about trying to have Ponyville be friends with Zecora. They even get some of their costume designs to look like stripes, but it just makes things a little awkward for the town, and are also a little still feared by Zecora. They're bummed they don't win an award, but Zecora thanks them for trying to help out, and she leaves afterwards, with the CMC feeling unfulfilled. Again, some of these episodes get a little bummed when some of these chain of reactions ripple throughout the series without Twilight being involved. So afterwards, the CMC just go on their merry way, just thinking, well, we'll try to figure out, trying to convince the people to like Zecora next time. And so, yeah. Next episode. Most simple explanation in the world. The entire episode is exactly the same as it is. The only thing that Twilight did contribute was trying to keep a Pinkie promise, and that was the first instance of it being used. And because of that, it's just nothing. Since Twilight didn't do anything to try and influence Rarity or Fluttershy to tell what the other was thinking, and Blueblood doesn't get involved as well, or tries to look good for the Canterlot elite with photo finish, but of course she just has eyes for Fluttershy in the photo shoot. That's it. The episode doesn't change. Next one. A Dog and Pony show also has the same reaction when it comes to not really changing much, because Rarity is able to get out of the mines all by herself without the rest of the main six and Spike helping, trying to rescue her, and they all mistook her for like being, well, a damsel in distress. So yeah, Rarity escapes. She gets gems. Next episode. Over a Barrel is going to have a mostly different story structure in how this issue was solved. Because without Spike talking to the Buffalo to vouch for Rainbow Dash and Pinkie Pie, they get captured and try to find a way to get the trees and the escape. And but I think they somehow will manage to get the tree, escape, but have the buffalo on their trail. So, which would lead to a feud, of course, between the buffalo and the settlers in Appaloosa. This comes to a head of near a battle, but Prince Blueblood actually comes into play and actually helps out for once. And here's my explanation for that. In an issue of Friends Forever number 26, Prince Blueblood was paired up with Shining Armor, where they were going to Yak-Yakistan to perform diplomatic duties with the Crystal Empire. See, the thing is that it doesn't make Shining Armor that... It doesn't pay him that well of a life, but it did give a bit more character to Prince Blueblood, where he was the diplomatic entourage that Shining Armor was bringing. So it shows a bit of character, and also in the first issue with the MLP deviations, it showed Prince Blueblood trying to it did bring continuity that he was a diplomat. So I believe in this scenario with Over a Barrel, Prince Blueblood would try to have the buffalo and the settlers sit down and talk things out, with Prince Blueblood trying to have them come to a compromise. So while they do get angry and yelling and insulting each other, Prince Blueblood, I think, would try to keep everything calm, with the rest of the main six also doing their best to try and keep the situation calm. But in the end, they will have them come to a compromise, and I think the episode would end like how it did in the show, with the settlers cutting down a line through the field, and in exchange the buffalo will get some compensation for allowing them to stay. And the main six would also be impressed for once of Prince Blueblood's abilities of being noble, of being nobility, and having diplomatic skills. And he feels, of course, a bit of pride for acknowledging his talents. So yeah, there's a big character development and point for Blueblood at this episode. So I think this will be like a big key one for him when it came to this season. So, next episode. With a bird in the hoof, Fluttershy does take Philomena to try and cure her of her supposed illness, but without Twilight to try and keep the bird hidden from Fluttershy supposedly going to go away, Fluttershy would eventually, I think, start to panic trying to cure her, and just come up and confess to Celestia, and maybe hopefully she knows how to take care of her pet. But before she could explain the situation, like just as she hands Philomena over, like I think after some antics, she turns to ash. She revives as a full phoenix, and of course Celestia explains everything, and Fluttershy apologizes after their words. So nothing happens as of significance when it comes to that, except for Prince Blueblood probably coming in and saying, oh, maybe if I give Princess Celestia her birds, maybe she'll bring me back to Canterlot. So he just probably try to convince Fluttershy to do so, and I think that's the most he'll contribute to helping out. So yeah, again, not much difference in the episode. Next one. Quemar Chronicles also doesn't change at all, with the CMCs going to the main six to figure out their origins or cutie marks. And while Prince Blueblood has no connection when it came to those Sonic Rainboom, as far as we know at this point, nor do I think we will ever know, he would still begrudgingly tell the CMC about how he got his cutie mark with a bit of flair, I think, and more boastfulness than Rainbow Dash did. They all meet up at Studio Cube Corner. Scootaloo and Prince Blueblood would be like, ugh, that's disgusting. And they would, I think, both laugh over it with their similar reactions. They get a group hug, and they say, hey, let's sing. And they would both go like, no. And I think that's how it would happen. But yeah, it's just a big comedic moment. Nothing different. It just shows that they were not connected as they thought they were. And of course they wouldn't. So that's it. Moving on. All's Well That Ends Well will not happen at all, since without Spike feeling jealous, the plot would not continue forward. And I think with Aloysius trying to get into the library with Prince Blueblood, like already have a pet called Kitty, which is funny enough, ironically being a dog, they would just chase away the owl, and Aloysius would just fly away afterwards. And probably end up at Fluttershy, who knows. Aloysius will not come into the show afterwards, and that's it. This episode does not happen, and honestly, it's a pretty forgettable episode. So, moving on. 3 of 1 also has a big change, because without Pinkie interrogating Spike, she does not have her breakdown with that Pinkamena phase. And I think she would eventually snap when she gets fed up and just try to confront her friends right away at the party. And when she eventually snaps, she, I think, would then just collapse with like, why didn't you guys just tell me from the start? But she would also get a little bit upbeat again. And I think that's for the better as well. So again, this episode changes just slightly without the involvement of Spike and Twilight. And we're moving on to the final episode. Now the best night ever happens. They all go to the gala, and Prince Blueblood is actually also ready to get back to Canterlot and try to convince Celestia's like, you know, after this whole time, I think I finally learned the true meaning of friendship. Now, can I come back now? I think this would be like saying, this is my best opportunity to convince her. Like, I've got all these mares who are my friends, and even then, they're so begrudging, like, I don't think we're friends. I think we're just going to be more like acquaintances at this point. And while the rest of the main 6 still go on to the gala as per normal in the episode, like, I think except for Rarity, who would just stick around with Prince Blueblood, trying to convince Celestia, oh yeah, I did this and I did that. I think, and Celestia would acknowledge some of his accomplishments, especially with like the one in Appaloosa, but with her being so busy with other delegates and people coming into the party, the chaos still happens. So Prince Blueblood tries to control the situation. It's like, okay, I'm still want to have a good time at the gala. I cannot let this happen. I gotta make this look good for Celestia. And of course, when all chaos happens, especially with Fluttershy bringing all the animals, Blueblood just snaps, I think laughs, then cries, runs out of the gala, heads to the coffee shop, I think, with the main 6, I think feeling a bit guilty of what happened and follow behind. He feels that after everything, he could never go back, and that even after trying to learn friendship the best way he could, he feels that he didn't learn anything, and it was just all for nothing. The main 6 do comment that he did have that, yeah, he was a bit of a trouble at first, but they were surprised of like what he did like much later in the season, and are also willing to try and give their friendship with him a shot. And yeah, at the end, they feel like, you know what, after all this, I think we've become closer than ever. Celestia, of course, would hear that and say, I agree, and that's what I wanted to do for the first place. I wanted him to finally come up and confess that he wanted to learn about friendship, and that he needs a guidance from you 5 ponies. And then this is like when Blueblood would actually start learning about friendship, try to take the friendship a little more serious this time, and for this also send letters to Celestia starting with season 2, which is going to be a problem when we get to that point. But I'm going to stop this right here with Blueblood having a revelation that he's going to take his friendship lessons much more serious this time and actually trying to turn over a new leaf. But that doesn't mean he's going to immediately give up his upstart attitude yet. So yeah, guys, Prince Blueblood would probably change a little bit more if he became the main character of My Little Pony during season 1. And I think that, yeah, while the comic helped me set this up, the comic was mostly for comedic purposes. I was trying to make this a little more serious if he was the star of the show. And then we've had like cocky dicks and princes of royalty like saying like they're know-it-alls, they're high and mighty, being the star of the show, and bring down to like peasant level that they call it, and they feel like, well, I feel like, oh crap, I'll rise up to the top one day, which is why I brought that example of the Emperor's New School or the Emperor's New Groove, with Cusco being that prime example. I think that you could do a character like that right. So if they went that route with Prince Blueblood, I think we could have gotten a character developing on and actually get better with it. So with that said, I think Prince Blueblood will get better as the season goes on. But I want to hear from you guys. What do you think will happen with Prince Blueblood going into Season 2? Or what do you think, if there's anything I missed during his development Season 1? Let me know in the comment section down below. And I'll catch you guys in the next What If video next week. With what if Spike was never hatched from his egg. So with that said, guys, this has been your Minute of the East. And until next time, take care, everyone.